Welcome to Mind Matters, and thank you for joining Dan Ploger and myself, John Krotek. This podcast is where we discuss the critical social, economic, and spiritual issues that affect all of us. We, the people, are in a battle against the forces of entropy, forces that are hell-bent on gaining power for personal reasons, forces hell-bent on destroying the concepts of freedom and individual thought, forces which don't benefit the social order. Thank you again. Hey Dan, welcome back to another authentic conversation here on Mind Matters.
Good to see you, John.
Yeah, man. We have a kind of an interesting show today. It's kind of a response, or if you will, a rebuttal show to a comment that was made about our last show about, what it means to be a homophobe, what that really means, and standing up for your own value sets. And the comment was somehow implied that we were adding more entropy and more chaos to the universe because we were speaking our core values or our own beliefs, and we were basically rejecting the beliefs of others, and somehow we weren't being higher conscious, practicing higher consciousness because we were adding this entropy. So let's get this straight. So in the spirit of higher consciousness, I agree. It's important for us to remember the act of kindness and to extend it whenever we can. And certainly, most people would agree with that. I think that's probably a fair statement, right? But here's the dilemma with that, and I'm sure this is higher consciousness. At least it's the scientific method. We're trying to figure this out, right? Logic and reason. Where does that leave individual beliefs and personal values? And are people supposed to just remain silent in the face of things that they don't agree with? So, Dan, we have three examples we're going to discuss today. Thank you for tuning in. And we really need to figure this out, or at least talk about it. And is freedom of thought more important than keeping your mouth shut? And is keeping your mouth shut because you might be deemed unkind really the way to go? So, on the surface, Dan, what do you think about this?
Well, first of all, I think that that people confuse kindness with respect, and those are two different things. I can respect you as a human being, but not be particularly kind to you. Any parent that's had to discipline a child understands that situation. So, and freedom of thought first is absolutely the root of the First Amendment. And you can't have freedom of, if you have freedom of thought, you cannot have freedom of speech, because they go hand in hand. So, I reject anything that tries to infringe on my ability in my own mind to create whatever images and ideas that I want. It has nothing to do with other people, and other people aren't controlling that thought process.
Some great points you have there. They define kindness as the quality of being friendly, generous, and considerate. And, that definition itself makes us realize how important it is for human interaction. But being said, by being silent, not standing up for our convictions or the things that we believe to be true for ourselves, you're exactly right. That goes against freedom of speech, which is a human right to be able to voice an opinion or a belief or a core value. Of course, kindness is an opinion, like you just said, that child that's being reprimanded for doing something that he or she shouldn't have done, I'm sure is thinking, oh my gosh, my mom, my dad, they're so unkind. But looking back on it 30 years later, they might say, wow, Mom and dad
Yeah.
was right. I'm glad they were unkind. So, you know, with respect to
And then,
kindness, yeah.
then you have the issue, John, of are you talking about the short term? Or are you talking about the long term? Are you are you acting in a loving way by, uh, by expressing your thoughts? And that, again, that comes back to human respect. When I speak with you or with anybody, I offer them that human respect that we all deserve. But that doesn't mean, number one, I've got to like you. It doesn't mean I have to be kind to you, but I have a choice. And I can like you if I want to. I can be kind to you if I want to. But again, the issue is it's my choice. And we have, you know, if we ignore the rights and the purpose of the individual, I don't know where humanity ends up.
Yeah, that's a great point there. And choice, you know, we do have that choice. But in light of something, let's look at an example with the concerned parents who have, we've heard a lot about it in the news lately, um, and about being truly worried about what their young kids are being taught in the classroom. And it's come to light that a lot of interesting subjects, which many parents feel that third graders and upwards don't need to be taught these things. Let's reference the drag queen story hour, which seems to be somewhat at the crux of that hotbed issue. You know, what children are being taught. This event, these types of events started in 2015, and they were geared for children age 3 to 11. 3 to 11. They're hosted by drag queens who read books, and many of these books have controversial content, who share their own personal stories and read these books. And they're hosted at public libraries and public schools and in bookstores. And parents around the country, most notably in Northern Virginia, Loudoun County or Fairfax County, stood up and said, this is wrong. You know, we don't want our children being subjugated or introduced to things of anything sexually ideological or sexual nature that they're too young to be exposed to. And so, and of course, our federal government, people in the Department of Justice, labeled these people as domestic terrorists. So concerned parents about what their kids are being taught in public school are being called domestic terrorists. So when you think of the chicken or the egg, and we're speaking about kindness, that label seems a bit of a stretch, and at the very least, seriously unkind. You know, if I'm a father and my third graders getting exposed to things that I don't agree with, don't I have a voice? And am I really a domestic terrorist? That's pretty lousy to call somebody that if it's not true.
Well, the current administration identified the 70 million or so Americans that voted for Donald Trump as terrorists to the country, and to be people to be shunned, ignored, and eliminated. That's pretty strong language. It certainly isn't kind in any way.
Man, you know, that definitely, he won't end up as the poster child for being a kind person. Um, yeah.
But exposing children to sexual ideas is foolish. It's like exposing them a child to second order differential equations. It's not going to register. You aren't accomplishing anything of significance. You certainly aren't accomplishing what you hope you're accomplishing by getting them to think differently about their own sexuality. And I didn't think about those things until well after third grade.
Yeah, I mean, inclusivity and diversity and all these buzzwords, they carry weight and they're significant, and they're things that we need to consider as a society. But like you said, you know, we don't expose children in the third grade to, you know, the laws of thermodynamics. You know, it's just way over their head. And those sexual things, it's like you just said, some of those things we didn't even start to figure out till we were in our 20s, our 30s, our 40s, and even older than that. So, I think that it's and very unfortunate that our government has to stoop to those levels to demonize a whole group of people that they don't necessarily agree with. Another example is even more is just as recent was that National Hockey League player who decided to sit out pregame warm up because he didn't want to wrap his hockey stick in rainbow tape, and he didn't want to wear a rainbow themed hockey jersey. And he said, and I'll quote, "This was a Pride night, and we're not here to denigrate gay people, but it's a hockey game, right?" And he said, "I respect everybody, and I respect everybody's choices, but also my choice, what you just mentioned, Dan, is to stay true to myself and my religion." And even though he stated that and the coach supported him and said the player did nothing wrong, he was immediately labeled a homophobe. And that's what our last episode was about in public and social media circles. So again, we ask for clarity: is standing up for your own values and religion phobic? And does it deserve this type of public outrage? What came first, the chicken or the egg? So you're going to call somebody a homophobe when it may not even be true, just because they stood up for their values.
That's in the current meaning of the word homophobe, which again literally means fear of, but it's been distorted to mean hating homosexuals. And I have no such feelings. And the hockey player said that I respect other people and their opinions. That is not being kind. That's being respectful. And that's the way you should respond to these situations.
And I even wonder, that's a great point, Dan. I even wonder, as a professional hockey player, when you sign up for a team, you sign up to come in and to compete against other teams, and hopefully you score more goals than they do. You sign up to play hockey. I would think, that you're not signing up for some political or controversial narrative. And if you have personal beliefs, why would you, it is a choice. You're just going to follow the group and go with something that goes completely against your value set. That's tough to take.
Well, that's not the American way, but of course, anything that's the American way is the prime fruit for picking for the social media gangsters.
Well, and that's another discussion for another time. But you raise a good point there, Dan, that freedom and what America truly stands for. And there's before we get to the next example, there's been this transformation now that anything American is somehow conflicted and based in racism and something that's not good. I mean, you can look around today and we're being American values are being subjugated all over the place. Movies and in food. Somehow it's racist to eat a taco now. I mean, come on. I mean, that hasn't it gotten to the point of just outright ridiculousness? And to somehow to be American is to just be irresponsible. If
and
anything,
ashamed.
Yeah, I mean that's ludicrous. We'll get to that when we close on this, but and then this is really a great example of being kind or unkind, I guess, depending on how you're looking at it. And it's an example in a story that we find in the Bible, Christian Bible. Matthew 21:12, we can read, "And Jesus went in the temple of God and cast out all of them that sold and bought in the temple, and overthrew the tables of the money changers and the seats of them that sold doves, and said unto them, It is written, My house shall be called the house of prayer, but ye have made it a den of thieves." And of course, we know the story that Jesus was later crucified by those who were in charge of the government at that time for heresy and blasphemy. So the same thing that Jesus was pointing out in the temple that day is exactly what those in power uh, used to kill him with. And so that
Was
act
Jesus was Jesus being kind to those money changers? Jesus probably busted up their property pretty bad. Did Jesus have respect for them as human beings? I think so. But kindness is not the measure, is not that important to measure.
Yeah, and at that time, an accusation of blasphemy or heresy and the consequences of it, which was crucifixion, was that's the epitome of unkindness, and certainly is dangerous to any society. When you demonize a certain group of people, it can lead to even more violence.
Yeah, well, I like to think of my kindness as something that I'm able to give to those around me that I think are deserving of that. And for the most part, that's everybody. I try to live that way. But again, don't confuse kindness with respect.
And I like that point that you brought out because, everybody agrees that kindness and its practice is significant for us, right? There's no doubt about that. And it is a choice. But, without kindness, it's sometimes hard to find common ground, but it's even hard to develop a mutual respect. But there is that fine line. But I believe I believe like in the spirit of higher consciousness as the commenter, if we don't embrace and respect others for their beliefs and their positions, then isn't it us who might be actually adding more chaos and confusion and in the end game, more violence? Without open-mindedness or being non-judgmental on somebody's beliefs, isn't our own human intelligence strained even more? But think about it, which action seems genuinely unkind? You standing up for your values or you being castigated because of them? Are you the chicken or are you the egg? And something that you touched upon that I really like, Dan, is the American aspect of this. And that's another thing to ponder. Is it being too American to stand up for our values? Seems like a deep, deep, deep subject to contemplate. And if we stand up for our values, are we being kind as the parent that's reprimanding their child for doing something wrong? Or are we being unkind? And if we're being unkind, then why call us a name?
Yeah.
That's, so any final thoughts on that, Dan?
No, I think that, kindness is like, that's something I have that I can give to those that I consider worthy, like money and charity. I give money to charity that I think are deserving of my sacrifice. And that's that's a currency that I have as a human being. And that's not something you can demand of me. And I don't want to come across as a curmudgeon because I am an upbeat, open-minded and tolerant American citizen that's fiercely proud of my heritage and fiercely proud of my beliefs. And that's, don't tread on me, I guess, is I want that threat to be there, but I never, and hope I never have to exercise it.
Well put. So let's be, all of you that are listening to our show and tuning into this conversation, let's think with higher consciousness. Let's also be non-judgmental. Let's respect the viewpoints of others who may or may not agree with us, and let's certainly not call them a name. or even suggest that they are adding more entropy or more chaos and confusion, why can't we just look at them with mutual respect, Dan, as you point out, as another human being with another viewpoint that's different from ours?
Well said.
Thank you, brother. I look forward to the next conversation. And thank you for tuning in to another authentic conversation here on Mind Matters, because your mind does matter. Thank you for joining us on another episode of Mind Matters. Use your critical thinking. Use logic and reason. Make your own determinations on the critical issues. Stay alert. Stay alive.